Good afternoon. This is Dante King. I am going live here. What time is it? It is about 5:15 or almost 5:15 on Saturday, April 26th. Um, I'm just waking up from a nap almost, so to speak. I've been at home resting finally. Um, so grateful for rest. Um, there is no replacement for rest. So I that is an ever uh, evolving practice for me, just trying to get enough rest. Anyway, I am going live right now, and as I began thinking about why I wanted to go live or what I was going to say, um, there were so many um, both converging as well as conflicting thoughts that I had about going live. And the reason that I had such conflicts or contentions, I would say, is because I never want to go live just for clicks and likes. I strive really hard to be very intentional about what I say, how I say it, and I don't want to um, ever offend anyone because I've continued to share with people, this is a calling for me. The work that I do, the work that I've done, um, I take it very seriously. So I am about to speak on this Shannon Sharpe situation, but I'm going to do it at a macro level and not necessarily focus so much on him because I believe that men like Shannon Sharpe, um, other such Black men that we've seen involved in situations here recently who have been both isolated in the conversation around sexual predation, um, such as R. Kelly, Bill Cosby. We see some things happening with Sean Diddy Combs. I believe that these are symptoms of a problem, of a larger problem that does not, certain problems are never addressed or have not ever been addressed in our culture. Um, and they are much larger than the people that we see being isolated and sidelined and targeted in this moment. So I'm going to begin this conversation with some facts. And hopefully you'll understand where I'm going as I read these facts for you. I'm also going to include uh, some different clips in this talk, um, even some concerning. Well, you'll see. I won't give it away. So the first thing I want to start off with is the reality that this culture um, has been founded upon and was founded upon sexual predation. I believe men who had very perverse sexual addictions, and that'll become very clear once you understand and wrap your head around some of the information that I'm going to share with you. But also sexual violence, which all of those things, sexual predation, sexual assault, sexual abuse, sexual addiction, all of those are iterations of violence. And I think that that has to be understood at the very basic level. So I think it's important to understand that under English common law, I'm just going to share some information. White men, English men, back in 1275, I believe, established a statute at Westminster, which established that it was legal to be able to marry girls as early as age 12 years old. The reason that that is important is because within the confines of the United States of America, that law remained intact, untouched for the most part, until roughly the 1880s, 1890s. And so under English common law, the age of consent for marriage and sexual activity was set at 12 years old for girls and 14 years old for boys. This standard was widely adopted in colonial America and persisted well into the 19th century. So again, until the 1880s and 1890s. Engagement before marriage. So engagement was set at even an even younger age with parental consent. So you had in the United States of America, girls being able to be engaged, before age 12, age 10, age 11, age 12, anything that if a young girl was coerced into engaging in sexual activity, let's say at age 10 and beyond, it was not considered rape. It was not considered rape. And I'm sharing this with you because I want you to take in what I'm saying, that within the permission structure, within the legal permission structure in the United States of America, it was, young girls and women have been powerless at the hands of sexual predators who have been able to do what they want to do with these young girls and women whenever they want. The other piece of this is that we must understand that any behaviors or proclivities that we see or want to recognize or acknowledge in Black men, where Black men are concerned, that Black men in our sexual behaviors or proclivities are patterned directly after white men in their sexual behaviors and proclivities, because white men control not just the social patterns and the cultural patterns and the belief system and the value system, but they control regulation. They control what is permissible and what is not through legal regulation. And so one of the things that I wanted to go to with that context, or within that context rather, is the conceptual framework by Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, which I'm going to share on my screen real briefly. And then I want to explore some additional information which will kind of back up or support the claim that I just made a moment ago. Okay, so bear with me. I'm going to share this. So Dr. Cress Welsing and her framework around color confrontation and white supremacy being a compensatory logic system, she says that in understanding white supremacy, worldwide domination, and white supremacy outside of the reason for white supremacy, she describes it as a behavioral system that functions and informs and influences every area of our lives, including sex and the politics of sex. We have to understand that everything in our society is political. Capitalism is political, education is political, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. So what we're talking about are the politics of sex, sexuality, sexualization. And so I'm shining a light on this is because Black men in America have never known a reality without the influence and control of white people in our lives. I want you to breathe that in, because it is the absolute truth. It's the only reality that we've known. And so all of our cultural proclivities, all of our the positions that we take, the attitudes that we hold, what we've learned, what's been inflicted upon us or into us as a collective group of people, whether straight or gay, has been inflicted upon us or into us by larger white society, including white men and white women. And so it is important for me to focus on this because Dr. Welsing, in what she says now, I'll just quote her. She says, white supremacy is a power system dynamic structured and maintained by persons who classify themselves as white, whether consciously or subconsciously determined. It consists of patterns of perception, logic, symbol formation, thoughts, speech, actions, and emotional response infused simultaneously into all areas of people activity, labor, entertainment, or education, including economics, education, entertainment, labor law, politics, religion, sex, and war. White supremacy's ultimate purpose is to ensure white genetic survival and prevent white genetic annihilation on planet Earth. Um, so I'm going to quote from Gregory Smithers' book, Slave Breeding, and you can also locate a lot of other information if you go directly to the slave narratives. And so he says, during the Great Depression, formerly enslaved African Americans shared their memories of Southern slavery with interviewers from the Works Progress Administration. Between 1936 and 1938, more than 2,000 former slaves from 17 states narrated their recollections of slavery. According to former slaves, slave breeding relied on the existence of plantation studs or bucks and breeding winches. The language that some slaves used to represent coercive sexual acts was sensational, but it served an important narrative purpose. It reflected the moral depths that slaves believed, that Black people believed white men and women had stooped to in order to keep them enslaved. Julia Malone, for example, a formerly enslaved Black woman, remembered that her mother was a breeding wench. She claimed, my mammy was a big woman. Peter Brown insisted that slave masters prized fast breeders. So I want you to take that in. So you have a culture whereby white men are making and building their wealth by prostituting and pimping primarily Black women, by confining the institution of racial slavery to their uteruses, both by social and cultural practice as well as legal custom. So we understand the institution of slavery was legal. We also understand that you had courts ruling, for example, the Mississippi Supreme Court in 1859, that sexual intercourse and sexual activity was to be regulated by each owner of each plantation. And so the behaviors, the attitude that Black American people begin to develop, where the politics of sex or the activity of sex or sexual activity is concerned, is patterned directly after white people. It's what they're being groomed into, it's what they're learning. And so there's a sexual perversity that pervades US society that is directly correlated and dates back to Eurocentricity, Eurocentric laws, Eurocentric cultural customs, and the ways that white Europeans, have gone about approaching sexual activity and their sexual proclivities. So, and there are also other books and resources that I point to in my book, Diagnosing Whiteness and Anti-Blackness. So I'm going to continue. Brown stated that his mother was a fast breeder, giving birth to 3 sets of twins. Steve Robertson reminisced about his father's sexual prowess, referring to the existence of plantation bucks. Robertson testified that the master picks the buck. So the master picks the Black man to sire children with the women that they want. So they go and they choose Black men to force them, young Black boys and men, to force them to rape young Black girls and Black women. Okay. And I need you to understand, because these are the terms by which Black men begin to develop as a community, right? In terms of our sexual proclivities, our sexual behaviors, and patterns around sexual behavior, that we're being groomed into being predators, into becoming just like the people who are oppressing us. These are the actions, these are the behaviors, these are the thoughts that are in their minds, and they are making or turning into reality a landscape, a society that is rife with sexual perversion, unregulated. And so, what he's suggesting is that his father was forced to rape these women, and it's usually the moistest, the moistest prolific is what he's saying, and I interpret that to mean the youngest and most ripe person that they can find. And so, what we also have to recognize in all of this is that young girls and women in this society do not have any agency, have never had any agency, and have been surrounded by another species of people who are characterized as male, who are stronger many times, most times, in our stature, the way that we're built, and our strength. And so they, essentially have been surrounded by predators, people who can dominate them and do what they want to them at any time. And so he says, this book goes on to say, Willie Blackwell informed his interviewer, his WPA interviewer, that my pappy and the Blackwell stud, the kind of a big, strong, powerful end that the plantation owners want to breed their slave stock up with. And so what Willie Blackwell is admitting to is the way that his father was used to not, um, to go around essentially and just rape women, any that he wanted, because his sperm was powerful so much, or the owners felt that his sperm was powerful, so powerful that he could impregnate women and girls very easily. And so, by referencing the slave narratives, by referencing case law, by referencing different statutes and pieces of legislation that existed throughout various states in the United States of America, it helped me to understand just the culture of legalized rape and legalized pedophilia in the United States of America. And I think that we have to begin there. That has to be dealt with and explored. We even have President Thomas Jefferson saying, I know no error more consuming to an estate than that of stocking farms with men almost exclusively. I consider a woman who brings a child every 2 years as more profitable than the best man on the farm. What she produces is an addition to the capital while his labors disappear in mere consumption. And so, what President Thomas Jefferson is essentially saying in this quote is that if you stock your farms with men, they're not going to be able to reproduce at the rate and pace that you need. You need to really be focusing on stocking your farms with young girls and women because they're able to produce massively, just more children. You can have them raped at any moment, and they will produce children. They will be the reproducers of the labor that you need for your farms. And so I think beginning there was very important, is very important for me, because I think we have to understand the politics of gender, the politics of maleness, and the politics of femaleness, and the toxicity that is ingrained into our psyche, that has been historically, and that continues to be ingrained in our psyche. I see a lot of people joining this live, and I'm grateful for that. I would love for you to comment at any time. For those of you that want to share your ideas and thoughts about what I'm saying. So I'm now going to go to a video where you have essentially the President of the United States saying that this type of predatory behavior has been permissible. And what's so profound about this clip that I'm about to share is that he didn't say this. This is not, from the what is it, Access Hollywood video that emerged back from 2006. But this is a statement that he made during a deposition when he was being deposed in the E. Jean Carroll case. And this was, I believe, 2022. It was either 2022 or 2023. I want to say it was October 2022. Anyway, this was after he had been president, after these claims had been made that he had sexually assaulted a countless number of women, and now he was being deposed for this E. Jean Carroll situation. And so I'm going to share this clip with you.
And you say, and again, this has become very famous in this video, I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet, just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything. Grab them by the, you can do anything. That's what you said, correct?
Well, historically, that's true with stars.
It's true with stars that they can grab women by the.
Well, that's what it's, if you look over the last million years, I guess that's been largely true. Not always, but largely true. Unfortunately or fortunately.
And you consider yourself to be a star?
I think you can say that, yeah.
All right. So I want you to take in what you just saw and heard, right? This is the president of the United States who had been president once. He was the 45th president. Now he's the 47th president. But what he's admitting to very freely and casually is that, yes, we as men have abused women for centuries, for millions of years, for a million years, to quote him. And he's saying it to the woman who is deposing him as though, this is some ordinary, normal, natural right that males have, not just in our society, but I guess throughout the world. If you look over the last million years, because the United States is only roughly 200 something, 50 plus years old. But if you look over the last million years, this is what we've been doing. This is how we've been engaged in sexual perversion. We've been engaged in pedophilia. We've been engaged in rape. And so the reason I'm framing this in this way is because we have to understand the permission structure that has been built where males, and particularly heterosexual males in this culture, have been facilitated, have been enabled, have been authorized to participate in the most vile, heinous behavior where females are concerned. And these things, these proclivities, these very questionable acts, I'm just going to say questionable because they're not questionable to some people. They're very questionable. They're very concerning and problematic, at least for me. And I say this as someone who has suffered sexual abuse in my life in a variety of ways. I won't get into that, but I understand that our society is rife with sexual perversion. And not many people come out and talk about it, but I believe a lot of young men and young males, I would even venture to say most, struggle with sexual addiction. And I do believe that it is the result of being groomed into those such proclivities at a very young age. And I've been speaking with some very close confidants lately about this topic because it's very concerning to me on a variety of levels. But from a very young age, we are coerced, especially when you participate in the politics of straightness or heteronormativity. We are coerced to go out and pursue young girls by, ages as young as 3, 4, 5. It's being projected onto young children in a playful way, somewhat. Look at him; he likes her. Look at how he's, pulling her arm or pulling her hair. He likes her, and it's being projected that these two young children, because they are of opposite sex, that they somehow are feeling some type of affection or attraction toward each other. And it's said playfully, but it's really not that playful and it's not that innocent, because when you go, move a little forward or onward, and by the time you're age 8, 9, 10, you're either being coerced by other males around you who have also been coerced to exhibit the same behavior that I'm about to describe. But you're being coerced to go out and pursue young girls and get a girlfriend and have a girlfriend. I'm sure many people who may, watch this live or, hear me speak about what I'm about to say can identify with this. How many of you played house when you were a child? And you know what I'm talking about. Or you go behind the bushes and you're humping with your clothes on because that's something that you saw on television, or that's something that you saw in your home in terms of some of the behaviors that the grown people were exhibiting. And you want to play like you are an adult or be grown. And so you're playing house by the age of 8, 7, 8, 9, 10, or 11. You don't know that humping behind the bushes is not necessarily something that you shouldn't be doing or not innocent. You just think you're playing, right? But that is not um, any type of behavior or playfulness that any child should be participating in. And so I'm going to move on. By the age 11, 12, I think I was probably 12 when I was being told by one of my mom's boyfriends that I needed to go. I will never forget this. He took me out to eat. His name was John. He took me out to eat in a restaurant in San Leandro. And we sat down at the table, and I did not like this man. I actually loathed him. But because I knew who I was at a very early age, I knew that I was not attracted to girls in that way. I resented him. I resented how he acted towards women, how he behaved towards women, because I was aware of some of the things that he was doing in his life. Even when I at that age, during that time period. But he says, you can talk to me about anything. He had this sort of this machismo attitude. And he's telling me I'm probably, actually, no, I think I was either 10 or 11, because I don't think I was in junior high school yet. So I was probably 10 or 11. But he said to me, you can talk to me about anything. And the three things that he said that I could talk to him about were money, P, go with me, for those of you who know what I mean by that, the P word, money, P, and women. So breathe that in. I can talk to you about anything, but those are the three topics that are up for you, that are programmed into your mind, or that are on your mind as you are taking the son of your girlfriend out to lunch to bond and connect with him. This is how you're going to connect with this 10 or 11-year-old child. And so there were men like John. There were many men like John. I had uncles. There were other older men who were around me who would talk to me about pursuing girls and going out to sleep with girls, and even suggesting that they would facilitate engagements with older women, that I needed to get me some, not be a virgin anymore, right? And it was encouraged that I go out and pursue multiple girls, not just one, not just have a girlfriend, focus on, building a connection with that person and developing, synergy. No, but that I repeat a pattern of having sexual encounters with multiple partners, with multiple young girls and women. And I think if many men and young boys are honest with themselves, they too can and would admit that they've had and shared similar experiences with men. I don't think that this is anything that has just emerged or evolved out of thin air. This is not specific to John, even though I didn't like John. I can't demonize John, because John got that mindset, that attitude, that psychological framing or functioning from somewhere, from societal influences, from the people who influenced him. And they got it from the people that influenced them. And so this is a larger societal and cultural problem, and it is not specific to John. It is not specific to P. Diddy. It is not specific to Bill Cosby. It is not specific to Shannon Sharpe. They have been afflicted, and they are the results of sexual corruption and perversion. And it is not to absolve. Please do not mistake what I'm saying, because I'm not, and I wrote this as a preface to coming on. This is not about defending the behavior. It is about explaining it, though, so that we can get to a place where we become better influences on children, and so that we can correct these issues at a societal level rather than demonizing someone every time some information comes out that shocks us. And I also wanted to address the hypocrisy, because there are so many people who would not want to be. I know for myself, there are things that I've endured and experienced in my life that have led me into behaving and acting out in certain ways that I would never want revealed. I just would not. And so I have a lot of empathy and compassion where people are concerned. And it's hard to see many times the treatment that we give to people once they fall from grace, um, because so many others of us have things that we would not want revealed to the public. And so it leads me into trying to go deeper in doing my own work and focusing on myself and healing the things in me that need to be healed, and also helping other people to do the same. So were a few of the things that I wanted to start with. Um, I also want to bring in the issue of, so let me say this, with Shannon Sharpe, it is important to understand that as a 50 something, 50 plus, I think they said he was 53, 54 at the time, pursuing this 19-year-old, that there has been a permission structure in place that has allowed for, and again, not just Black men, because we saw with the Jeffrey Epstein documentary, he was involved in molesting and raping underage girls, right? And the president of this country, Donald Trump, was featured in pictures with him. He was featured in girls that looked to be he was pictured in photos with young females that presented, at least to me, the same type of Shannon Sharpe situation that he's having with this OnlyFans model. I think the difference is, or we know that the difference is that if you're white skin can absolve you from being a criminal, because you can be convicted of 34 counts of, I think what was it, fraud. Donald Trump was convicted. He was convicted in the civil case concerning E. Jean Carroll, that he indeed committed the sexual attack on her. And he was ordered to pay her money, but he was still able to ascend to the presidency of the United States. He was still able to garner the support of over 70 million people who voted for him. So if you have white skin, if you're a white male, this society is much more forgiving to you than it is for non-white men, and particularly Black men. It is the harshest and most severest where Black men are concerned. And so I don't want to spend too much time on that, but that is a bedrock of what I focus on in my work, because it is important. Otherwise, this becomes a perpetual demonization of unchecked Black male behavior. And that is just not what this is. This none of this falls on Black men. How can I say this? This is not about Black men being sexual predators. This is about Black men following the patterns and the permission structure that white male patriarchy has established and set up, authorized and enabled. And any and everyone in this society, if you have the maleness, if you have the power, if you have the influence, so to speak, you believe that you can participate in this type of behavior, because that is what is grilled into you and infused into you at a very young age. And so it's not shocking to see what is happening with Shannon Sharpe. I feel bad for him, because he is struggling and navigating a sickness that he never dealt with, that he never got to deal with. And it got the best of him before he could deal with it, because his business is now out in the open in public. But what we are really seeing in these men, when we see these situations emerge, are people who are suffering from a disease. It really is a disease. And it is, I believe it is a combination of multiple diseases here, which I won't get into, but read my book, because I think that is a great start for you to understand conceptually, as well as in detail what it is I'm saying, what it is I'm suggesting. So I'm going to play another, because Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, who I opened the talk with, who I absolutely love, she engaged in a talk with Dr. Alvin Poussant in the early 1970s. And I used to share this in some of the workshops that I do. If I'm able to get around to it, I will still share it at times. But she engaged in a discussion around Black men, white women, because the other aspect of this Shannon Sharpe situation, and this was true for what we saw with Jonathan Majors, it's been true with what we see in interracial dating where Black men are concerned, in the ways in which they pursue white women, especially when they achieve a certain modicum of success or status in this society. Because in understanding the politics of colorism, the politics of race and racism, the politics of white supremacy and anti-Blackness, we have to understand that Black men psychologically consider consider white women and white men in the gay community. Black men consider white men, and those who are of a higher, or that lack skin pigmentation, of a higher status, and they pursue them as such. And so in this conversation, Dr. Welsing is talking to Dr. Poussant, and I'll probably play about, 7 minutes of it, maybe 7 to 10 minutes of this conversation. But they're talking about the psychology of it, and they're looking into it as something that is pathological. And I think the pathology of race play, which is what we saw Shannon Sharpe engaged in, is something that's not talked about enough. I know that I have been, it's been proposed to me on different dating apps that I frequent. White men will oftentimes send me messages and ask me if I'm into race play. And at first, I didn't know what that was, because what is race play? There's nothing playful about race to me at all. And so the fact that you can have these predators, these very vicious, predatory monsters just on the prowl, trying to act out their fantasies, their corrupted, perverted fantasies, where other people are involved that they've racialized, I think it is not only disgusting, I think it is extremely violent, extremely perverse and pathological. And it's something that also needs to be investigated. And so the pursuit, though, of white women or white men, if you're, let's say, a Black man that dates white men, or a Black woman or a woman of color that pursues or finds value and or status in white men or white women, that is also pathological too. So I appreciate part of what they are getting into in this discussion, and I'm going to share a piece of it with you. So here we go. And let me change this so I can be on the screen too as I am sharing it with you. Give me 1 second. I'll actually do this.
This is the part one of a two-part series entitled Black Man, White Woman. Significantly, it was not entitled Black Woman, White Man, because in the last 10 years, the statistics indicate that there is a significant increase in relationships between Black men and white women, and a significant decrease in relationships between Black women and white men. With me to discuss this very volatile issue are two leading psychiatrists, Dr. Frances Welsing, a member of the psychiatric department of the Medical College at Howard University, and Dr. Alvin Poussant, a psychiatrist, a member of the Medical College at Harvard University, and author of the well-known book, Why Blacks Kill Blacks. To begin with you, Sister Welsing, why do you believe, basically, Black men are becoming so significantly attracted to white women, or is it vice versa?
I'd like to turn it around. I think, first of all, that white women are seeking black men first. Black men some are attracted to white women. And I don't think that we can understand this phenomena unless we understand really what is the larger dynamic that is occurring, not only in this society, but in the world at large. And the way that I look at that phenomena is that, number one, we are living within the context of a system of white supremacy, which is my definition of racism. Racism is a worldwide system of white supremacy, domination, and control. And all of the behavior that we see all over the world, whether it's the behavior of the black woman, the white woman, the black man, or the white man, is occurring within the dynamics of this system. And we can understand what is happening as far as the white woman, black man relationship and why that is on the increase. I think if we understand the need for the system to remain intact.
But Francis, you don't think that the black man has a special attraction toward the white woman?
Oh, yes, he does. Yes, he does. Well, he has been programmed historically to feel that, first of all, this is the woman who is the woman in the world. And this is the thing that has been denied him, in terms of, let's say, male-female relations or sexual partners. The black man, at least in this area of the world, has been told historically, you cannot touch this woman. And so at that level of social dynamic programming, yes, the black man has always felt, well, this is the one thing that I have been denied in this society. And so many black men, I think, at one level, they are moving towards white women as white women move. White women are the major aggressors in this situation. But the black man is playing his role because he says, well, this is the thing that I've been denied. This is the thing that is going to be the great equalizer.
I think, though, that the need has sort of been exaggerated, because if we look at those statistics you just mentioned, actually in a past decade, even with the increase, there's only about 43,000 black man, white woman marriages. That's a very, very tiny percentage. That means about 2% of black men are married to white women. Mm-hmm. Now, if we had accepted the propaganda, that is the white propaganda, that all black men desire a white woman and they want to marry your daughter, you would expect the incidence of the marriages to really be increasing at a much greater rate.
I was going to ask, does it mean that that the fact that if we accept the fact that black men do feel that white women are preferable to black women, are we saying that their behavior in the context of standard behavior is normal or abnormal?
Well, I don't like to use those terms. I would prefer to understand the phenomena. For example, if we start labeling behavior, like, for example, homosexuals don't like to be called pathological, for one thing. And I think that it is more useful if we say, well, let us try to understand the phenomena of homosexuality, as opposed to saying, well, now that's sick. And then people get turned off and they don't spend time trying to understand the dynamic. In the same way, I don't want to look at the phenomena of, cross-color sexual mating or marriage or whatever. And in terms of pathology, I would rather say, well, let's try to understand what actually is going on.
But you call the white woman the aggressor.
I say that she is aggressive because we live in the context of a white supremacy society in which white people are the dominant group. They are the people who control the power. We are the oppressed people. We are the people who are victims of that system. Just like, in terms of history, it was just a short 2 months ago in terms of the whole historical span that black men were being lynched for looking at a picture of a white woman. Do you see? And now we are told, well, now everything is opened up. Well, I want to understand, well, why is it that everything is opened up? I think everything is opened up since black men started talking about black power. You see, when black men start talking about black power, then that says, well, all right, maybe there will be a challenge to the system of white supremacy domination, not only in this area of the world, but all over the world. So the white supremacy system says, all right, well, now what do we do to get these people back in control? And what do we do to get them back in check? That is the black man. Well, we'll lay our ace trump card on them. which is a white woman.
In other words,
You see, which brings the black
think,
man then back within the context that the white supremacy system is going to work for you. See, we denied you this, now you have it. But on close examination, in spite of all of the black-white marriages, the black-white sex that has occurred throughout history, in the last 500 years, there has been no serious tampering with the maintenance of white supremacy, certainly not through the bedroom activity. Do you see what I'm saying? But in other words, it throws people off balance.
So
in other words,
the white woman is still, I think, in a position of psychological dominance.
Right.
And so far as she is, that's a form of white supremacy, and that the black men are frequently responding to her dominant position, the fact that she is considered a superior status object in society. But getting back to this point,
well, let me ask a question before you move to
ahead.
that. Then if we accept that, are we saying that the black men who marry white women are asking for dominance from a female?
no, the black men who are married by white women.
But
No,
the trend you continually.
No, I think that they're looking for status.
The black men are looking
The
for
black
status.
men are looking for status, whether they are aware of it or not. In other words, as long as you have white supremacy domination any place in the world, whether it's Brazil, whether it's Hawaii, whether it's Japan, any place, you name it, that as long as the people of color are the people who are oppressed, then when a marriage occurs, in other words, the dominator says, I will pick you amongst the victims who I dominate to marry you, then the victim says, oh, goody, this means I'm in.
Well, that's true, but if I can ask this question.
Okay.
It seems the way you are framing your analysis, that the almost total blame, if we can use that word, for interracial marriages is because of, one, white society vis-a-vis white supremacy,
Seeking to maintain itself.
and two, white women being the aggressors. You seem to be saying, and I'm asking a question, that black men are just blameless and they're sort of like the victims of something that they have no control over, or that they have no need to be married to a white woman for some perhaps pathological basis.
No, let's say, for example, if you set up the conditions for the development of a sadomasochistic relationship, then the masochist as well as the sadist is a part of that relationship, and they are playing roles that they have been conditioned to play. In other words, a person who is a masochist seeks out the sadist because then they could play their sort of dual game, their mutual reciprocity together. Now, within the dynamic of the system of white supremacy, you have, for example, many of the white women who are with black and other non-white men are actually, I believe, having a dialogue with white men.
How does that work?
See, the dialogue goes like this, according to my analysis. First of all, the white women, we have the women's liberation movement, which is a dynamic of white females. Okay, they are asking for liberation out from under the white male. All right, now within the dynamic of the white supremacy culture, you also have penis envy. In other words, the white men have been perceived as being dominant over the woman. And so the woman says, well, I wish I had a penis. Okay, so what does she do? She says, well, I'll go out and get one that's supposed to be more powerful than yours, but I'm going to control it because we are white and we control all of the non-white. So she goes out and she selects, and all this is unconscious, activity, if you will. She goes out and selects a non-white male, be he black or any other non-white. Then she is walking down the street, or they can go to the, justice of the peace or the priest or be married. And anytime a white man sees that, she is communicating to him, see, I've got one because I am in control of this.
But I don't think we can, generalize to that extent. I think that's a theory, but it's getting back to the question when we present arguments that way is whether the relationship between black men and white women are pathological. Now, Frances said she doesn't like to think of it in that framework, but the fact is that a lot of psychiatrists have presented or said that interracial relationships in marriage stem from a type of negative psychological position or some type of pathology because of the racism in society. They'll say that the racism distorts people's minds so that frequently you'll get, say, a white woman attracted to a black man for the wrong reasons or for racist reasons. She may see him as inferior, that might turn her on, or she might see him as a black stud, that may turn her on. All of these are racist perspective.
Okay. So what Dr. Poussin and Dr. Welsing shined a light on are the ways in which we can begin to view what we saw, what we're seeing and hearing play out in the Shannon Sharpe situation as pathological. We heard messages or saw messages where the young woman is saying to him that she wants to experience some of that big black gravy. He suggests or she suggests that she wants some of that big black. She wants a big black, something big black that was repeated several times, and she wanted that big black baby something or inside of her, or that he was going to fill her up. And you also saw, or the messages, at least to me, suggested that he willfully participated in that behavior and that he was drawn toward that type of engagement because of his own internal proclivities and receptivity toward that type of approach and that type of interaction with another individual who happens to be a white presenting woman, young woman. And so to that degree, in the pursuit of each other, based on those terms, that in and of itself is sick. It is sick. Because what it unveils or what it reveals is a man, a middle-aged man, who happens to be, by the way, a darker skinned, black, middle-aged man who is very insecure with himself, who feels that he needs to go out and control someone who has, in a sense, less agency than him when it comes to the socioeconomic status, when it comes to the politics of gender, and even the politics of sex and strength. So there's that piece, but also he is looking to reincarnate a slave mistress of sorts. And I want us to think like this is not just a bedroom game of, you play the cop and I be the even that to me would be a problem too, or problematic. But like we're literally talking about reenacting the politics of racial oppression, but where sex and sexuality is concerned. But then I, as the big black stud or brute, I get to dominate you and act out all of my aggression toward you because of what you represent as a status symbol in this society, something that that has been off limits, that was off limits from my father, that was off limits from my grandfather. But now I have access to all of this and I have money, which garners me the ability to act out immeasurable degrees of power and control and aggression and assault if I want. And then we also see the politics of white female predation, where this woman and many white women that I know, well, I'm not even going to say that I know because I don't really know them like that. But I, in my estimation, observing the politics of white female predation and just kind of this like sneakiness that takes place where they can many times, I'm not saying this conclusively across the board, but many times be very coercive where successful Black men are concerned. These are the same men that they would most likely never touch or date if these men were still in the hood or of a lower socioeconomic status. But now that they've become ball players, now that they've become attorneys, they're doctors, they now feel a degree of attraction toward them. And, Shannon is of a certain height, a certain size. He used to be an athlete. And so she's acting out her fantasies too of dominating this big Black man and controlling him in some of the ways that Dr. Welsing and Dr. Poussaint alluded to in the video. And I think when I evaluate this on terms of historically, as well as kind of looking through the really sociocultural and clinical aspects of this situation, but and of many others where interracial dating is concerned, there are many questions that I have that stem from our history in this country, and I do believe that no Black man or Black woman is involved in an interracial relationship where they're equal with their partner. You cannot be equal in a society where people have been racialized to be superior than you, more superior than you are, and where they have institutional practices and processes working in their favor. And they also have the weight of the society on their side that makes it so, for example, that if this white woman, as she's doing right now, with coming out and putting all of this information out there and really amplifying the nature of predation that was involved in their relationship, that if this white woman had been a Black woman, this situation would not be getting nearly the amount of attention that it is getting in the way that it is happening. But it also makes it so that if she ever wanted to suggest or say to the police, asserting herself, that she's been involved in an abusive relationship, she could literally have law enforcement at Shannon Sharpe's door, swatting his house, and maybe even killing and murdering him. This goes far beyond what she's doing on a civil level. And that's really the politics of race. And so these Black men are not equal with these white women at all, ever, although that they think that they are to a degree. And we've seen over and over again, these white women through very retributive acts, when they feel sidelined, when they feel disrespected, when there has even to some degree, been abuse, they can ruin these Black men at every turn or at any point. And that's what I appreciated about what Cat Williams was saying, when he said that, yes, he finds white women attractive. He's not going to deny that, just like he finds every other woman or group of women attractive. But he would never date one because he understands the politics of race, the politics of racism, the politics of racialization that makes it so. And I think he was joking, but he's like, you could be the king, you could be Cain the Conqueror, and they will destroy you within 2 weekends. Right. And so there are so many layers and aspects to all of this where I just believe we have to begin to investigate an array of dynamics and how they fit together, and maybe not even fitting them together, but just kind of analyzing, well, first pointing to, highlighting, and then analyzing the layers, the infinite layers that are involved here. But it also requires degrees of honesty that I don't believe most people are willing to admit to and be honest with themselves or others about. So there is, and I also want to bring this too into light. I think Shannon Sharpe has been ostracized by the Black community prior to this point. And I'm not going to say the Black community as a whole, but maybe where he grew up. But I would say the majority of the Black community too. And here's why. Because when we talk about internalized anti-Blackness, we're talking about the internalization of oppression from belonging to a group of people that have been demonized and positioned as the permanent underclass in this society. And so on the value scale, Blackness as a measure of value has been designated to lack value, to not have any value at all. And so there is a pursuit by Black people to move as far away from what it means to be Black or being Black as possible, while also, and this is where the psychosis comes in, while also claiming to be pro-Black or to be proud, to be Black and proud, But what is very interesting, and this is what Dr. E. Franklin Frazier is pointing out in his book, Black Bourgeoisie, which I reference a lot, is that the model for Black progress or Black improvement is the same model for white improvement. And so what it means to be Black and educated, what it means to be Black and successful, what it means to be Black and accomplished, means that you want to become more like white people, because everything that is situated and contained within the progress framework or progress model or structure has been established and set by white people. And so Shannon Sharpe has had to deal with not only navigating his own internalized anti-Blackness, where the conception of Blackness or the concept of Blackness is concerned, but he's also had to deal with, I'm sure, colorism, because he's a darker skinned Black male, and featureism. And there's a video, and texturism having to do with hair. So featureism, he has a pretty wide nose, so having to do with Afrocentric features is what I mean. There's a video of Terrell Owens, and I wish I would have found it before I came on here, but where he's admitting to how he was demonized by Black girls growing up who did not want to date him. And so he stopped pursuing Black women because they were, in his estimation, unkind to him. They talked about how dark he was, and that they wanted the light-skinned guy with good hair. And I can tell you, I remember growing up in the 80s and 90s, and young girls and older women having conversations about, wanting to date light-skinned men and how they were so fine. And I also believe that there's a pathology there that needs to be investigated on both sides, where colorism, featureism, and texturism are concerned. And so I think, deeming non-Black people, whether they be Eurocentric Latina people, Eurocentric Indigenous people, or more ambiguous non-Afro-Latino, non-Afro-Indigenous, non-Afro-American people, where they are concerned, there's this pursuit to gain status. And one of the ways to do that is to seek out a partner who is not Black or who does not look like they are traditionally Black. And if you do happen to pursue a partner who is Black, that they must be of a certain color, of a certain hue, so to speak. They must have certain features that fit into the framework of Eurocentric desirability. So they can't have, for instance, a wide nose or too large of a nose or lips. And I'll share from my own personal experience growing up. I was teased by a lot of Black children growing up for having full lips. And I was called big lips, just most of the time I grew up, most of my life. So there is this demonization that takes place in the Black community too, that we want to pretend like it's not there, and we want to project that, Black men should feel safe dating Black women, or Black women should feel safe dating Black men, when also Black men demonize Black girls and Black women and talk about their hair texture, talk about their hair length, talk about their features, talk about the way that their bodies are shaped. So there's this demonization on both sides that takes place, that is the result of internalized anti-Blackness, that is the result of internalized white supremacy, that I also believe drives a behavior. And it drives this what I'm terming in my book, or framing in my book, as a psychosis, where we are in direct conflict with what we say we value, what we say we love. And yet that's not necessarily acted out when we examine how these dynamics ensue and how they function within the larger context of the Black community, as well as larger society. And so the other piece to this is, and I'm going to end with this because I don't want to be on here all night. I could literally be on here all night, but I don't have all night. There is this very ill variable that I see and have also encountered and experienced firsthand within the female community. I'll just say the female community. I'm not going to isolate Black women in this so much, or Black girls, but that's who I grew up around. So that's, what I can point to, and that's who I'm most familiar with, because I've never entertained dating a non-Black person, whether they be male or female. What I will say, though, is that there is what I believe, we hear many times the term toxic masculinity, and I don't believe it's toxic masculinity, because I believe that masculinity, just as femininity, these are varying energies per se that are shared across the spectrum of maleness and femaleness or humanity, right? I have certain masculine tendencies that I act out, and I also have certain feminine tendencies or a feminine energy that I carry. And I see that inherent within all of us, although there are many men who may want to deny what I'm saying. But the reason that I'm bringing this up is that what I believe people are really pointing to is a toxic maleness that is really more so located and infused into heteronormative maleness. Just like there's a toxic femininity that is infused into hetero femaleness in genderization, because there is the way that gender functions is to just like the way that race functions, it's to organize people not just into categories, but into categories that are assigned specific roles and behaviors that you should act out versus not act out. And I think that being someone who is homosexual and being a member of the gay community, I have experienced many, 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 many more freedoms and flexibilities in expressing myself, expressing my emotions, being in touch with certain things that if I were a straight male in this society would not be on the table for me, because I would be characterized as weak. And in the gay community, I mean, I'm characterized or seen as that by many people in our community, in our society, and yet I really don't care. It doesn't bother me as much. But I believe that if I were straight, I would actually care, because it is taboo. It is unwelcomed. It is unacceptable to be a straight male in this society and not exude a certain amount of assertiveness and aggression where straight or heteronormative maleness is concerned. So there is this way in which we are socialized, not just by men, but also women play a huge role in this, because from a very young age, we're being told that to be a boy, to be a male, is to not be weak. And I've had many women express in front of me to their male children. I also experienced this treatment where women were telling me at a young age that expressing emotion was weak. It was not representative of being a big boy or being a boy. Boys don't cry. You hear that a lot. You hear that from men a lot, but you also hear from women. I heard that a lot from women and girls. By the time I was in my teens, and I was just having a conversation about this, I do think one of the things that influenced me to really relent from trying to engage in what I would refer to as relationships, like spousal type relationships with women, beyond platonic relationships with girls and women, is that young girls and women kept telling me that I was too nice, that I was too nice. Now I want you to breathe that in because if a man or a boy can be too nice for you or to you, then what is it that you're desiring? What is it that you want? And so it's become very interesting to me when I hear women talking about they want men who are emotionally available, but yet they're not raising the boys who become men to be emotionally available for the most part. And so women are just as much implicated in this scenario as men are, because there are a set of toxic behaviors and toxic beliefs and values that are perpetuated in our society that I believe are very destructive, and they lead to destructive relationships, which is why you can look on virtually any daytime talk show and see over and over and over and over and over again the same problems in different heterosexual relationships. And it is because of the politics of genderization, the politics of sexualization, the politics of heteronormativity and sexuality. And don't get me wrong, I could do a whole other talk on some of the issues, a lot of the issues in the gay community, because we have issues too. But they are some similar, some are the same, but they vary, they are different. And so I really do believe that being someone who is seen as a racial deviant, because I'm a Black man in this society, and we know that, you know, anything that is non-white is seen as a deviant. But I'm also viewed as a sexual deviant because I'm gay and I'm not straight. That sets me up to be somewhat of a witness. I'm not claiming to be an expert per se, but it sets me up to be a witness. And I really have attempted and tried to think about these things in a very responsible way, and also in a way that is critical, extremely critical, and non-punitive. Nothing that I'm saying here today should be viewed or taken or felt as punitive, because that is not my intention as well. It is just to try to bring light to and explain and share some of the thoughts that I've had seeing, you know, how our current day society is functioning and operating, and what I hear every day from people that I'm in touch with, as well as various podcasts that I tune into, and other programs that I watch. And these influences are everywhere. They're in movies and entertainment, they're in books, they're in commercials, they're in videos, they're in what you know, the clothing that's offered and produced, mass produced in different clothing lines and stores. The politics and the economics of sexuality and sexualization are huge. And I just think if we as a society are going to ever be able to heal and be the moral people that we say that we are or want to be, we really have to come clean with ourselves and the ways that we function in this culture, and also investigate the influences that have influenced not just us as individuals, but our families, the groups that we come from. For example, I am clear that the instances of pedophilia that occur within the Black community are the direct result of the ways in which white men and women infused pedophilia into our community, into our families. The ways in which rape happens in this culture. We have a whole cultural framework of legalized rape dating back to the colonial period, and then lasting for hundreds of years in this country. And so that set both a permission structure and a behavioral structure in a behavioral context, behavioral orientations, whereby just because the laws are no longer in place and permit people to do these things, these are passed down by custom. This is what has been enshrined into people's families, into the larger society as a whole. And so there is no legislation that will come along and root out things that have been programmed in psychologically and behaviorally. So there's so much more to this, and I almost wish I had invited a panel to come on with me today, because I'm doing somewhat of a monologue, and I think that this deserves so much of a robust discussion between varying perspectives. So I do plan to have a deeper conversation about this that will take place. I'm thinking maybe within the next few weeks or so, maybe June. I don't know. It just depends on my schedule. Like I said, I'm very busy right now. But you know, if you have thoughts about what I've shared, I'd love to hear your comments. You know, if you have any, feel free to leave them in the chat. Y'all can post them. You could have been doing it right now. I also want to invite you to go to my Instagram. If you've not followed me, it's Dante D. King Official on Instagram. So it's Dante D. King Official. If you have not bought the book, Diagnosing Whiteness and Anti-Blackness, White Psychopathology, Collective Psychosis, and Trauma in America, please go to my website and buy the book too. You can go there. You can also go to Amazon. It's on Amazon. You can go to barnesandnoble.com. You can order from Barnes and Noble. You can go to Marcus Books. Marcus Books, which is the oldest Black-owned bookstore in the United States, dating back to the early 1960s. And you can buy the book from Marcus Books. Contact Blanche at Marcus Books and tell her I told you that you could get the book from Marcus Books. So I hope I don't want to say that I hope you've enjoyed, what I've shared and brought to you here today, but I hope that it's helped you to think about, where we are as a society differently and how we really need to support and begin to address people who are struggling right now. And I'm not talking about necessarily Shannon Sharpe or P. Diddy, but I'm talking about children who are being socialized, young boys and young girls right now who are being socialized to repeat the same behaviors that we see having happened in the Shannon Sharpe situation, in the Jeffrey Epstein, Donald Trump, right? Donald Trump says, we've been predators for 1 million years, right? So the culture, the design of the culture is predatory, it is violent, it is abusive. And the sooner we deal with that, the sooner we can begin to really influence each other in a more positive manner, and we can raise children who will deal with each other responsibly, regardless of what their gender is, regardless of what their sexuality is, but that can garner healthier relationships that enable them to respect and regard each other with tremendous value. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me today, for staying with me. As always, I love you. Get your rest, get your rest, get your rest. See you soon.